Coaching these boys on the club teams and everything since they were down here. And Reed Hellman, I call him a tower of power. Love you guys. We'll turn it over to you. Let her rip.
Yeah. You would have thought that Coach Hicks and I had prepared notes this week. I spoke at all about even everybody even being here today. So, yeah, I'm Mike Hellman. This is my son, Reed Hellman. My two other boys are right here, Nicola Hellman and Joseph. And then I have 3 daughters as well, and my wife Ashley. So a little bit about my backstory and kind of why I think it's important is because some of the things that happened to me when I was a young child, some of my experiences really shaped what I wanted for my family when I started having a family. So I was born in Perry, Oklahoma, not too far from here. Single mother. She was waiting tables at the local diner. Probably making 40, 50 bucks a week, right? So we were struggling. I tell the joke to my kids that, you know, I was poor back when you still had the paper food stamps. I remember going to the store with those paper food stamps. So my mom wanted better for us. We had a cousin that lived up in the Denver area. And so we loaded up right after my 4th grade year and moved to Denver, Colorado. Big difference up there in Perry, Oklahoma. So over that time, up there with my mom, over 4th grade through 8th grade, I attended 6 different schools in that time as mom moved around and tried to get a better life for us. And that really shaped me. I wanted my kids to have consistency in their school. I didn't want them having to move around like that. And the other thing that shaped me was going to some of those Denver schools. I mean, those are some big time schools. I mean, big time schools. Makes Enid look small. So I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted a small school. So I moved back here in junior high and moved in with my dad. Graduated high school from Kremlin High School back in 1999. And while I was in high school, I met my wife Ashley. She went to school at Chisholm. She had kind of the opposite of me. She went to Chisholm from pre-K all the way through, so she was a 13-year senior. I always thought that was really cool. Thought, man, that's kind of what I want for my kids, that kind of stability. And so we went off to college. She played college basketball. We went off to college, got our degrees, came back here. She accepted a job in Enid. We moved to Enid, lived in Enid for a year, decided we wanted to buy a house. And the only thing we really knew is we didn't want to go into Enid, and we didn't really want to go into Chisholm either. She'd been at Chisholm, and we wanted them to kind of have their own little legacy. She was a pretty good athlete. If you've been out to Chisholm, you'll see her down in the gym and on the softball wall out there. So kind of wanted to have their own little legacy and wanted them in a small school. I mean, Chisholm at that time, and you guys see it now, it's grown to a pretty good sized school too. So started looking and came out here to look at a house over off of Lisa Lane and didn't like the house. We're driving back in the real estate agent, turned on Oakwood Road there, and we saw them putting a sign on Norman Road out there. Pulled down there, they hadn't even put it on the market yet, and we ended up buying Jim Romas. You know, Jim Romas, we bought his in-laws house in 2006. So a lot of what my story, John asked me to come talk here today and wanted Reed to talk, and Reed said, no, I don't really want to talk, Dad, so I knew I was going to have to carry most of it here. He wanted to talk about this basketball game, but I think it's important that we talk about how God's been involved in this whole situation. Not just, it's not just about the basketball, like God is there, even in the bad times, He's always present. And in those bad times, sometimes you have to really look for the good that He's doing, but even in the darkest times, He's doing something good somewhere. So with that, moving to Waukomis, how did we end up in Waukomis? It was just wild. And so June 2006, we bought that house, and I guess it would have been sometime in 2007, Ashley finds out she's pregnant and we're having a boy, and about that time we find out that her brother, Jeff, and his wife, Amy, who live in Bison, are having twin boys that are about three months older than Reed. And so that's been a really, really awesome journey there. When you talk about that, why did we end up in Waukomis? We never came here thinking, Jeff and Amy lived there. God was working there. He had a plan for those 3 boys, and Reed's been very fortunate with Mark and Eli. Eli was going to be here today. I invited him, and some of the boys have been here. He got a speeding ticket, so he had to go to work today to earn a little bit of money. Those 3 boys have been, you guys have been more like brothers than you really have been cousins. And when people see them, it's kind of like the triplets. So it's been awesome. And So for me as a dad, no matter what you're passionate in, whether it's sports or whether it's, hunting, fishing, farming, you have that firstborn boy and you start dreaming, right? And for me it was sports and my love of sports. And so I had him, but then I also kind of got two other ones that were right there with him. So, I almost had a basketball team right there. So come up with a crazy idea. Probably one of the craziest ideas I've ever had was let's get them involved in sports as early as we can. And the first year we signed them up for T-ball, you, Mark, and Eli were 3. You had just turned 3. And Case and Kokajon, Case and Kokajon, most of you probably know Case and Kokajon. He wasn't even 3 yet when we played that first year at T-ball. And then we went right into basketball for the first time. And when I tell people, if you've ever wondered what it's like herding cats, get your kids involved at 3 years old in sport, because you go to that first basketball practice and it was at our church there, Amy First Nazarene, and the goals aren't adjustable. So I brought in one of those roll away goals that you have in your driveways that drop down to 8 foot. And we had our first practice, and at that age you think, well, what can you really do? All you can do is shoot on the goal. You can't get them to pass to each other. You can't get them to run any kind of drill. I played a lot of basketball, and I had all these drills as a big practice plan, and it didn't work. So I remember after that first practice, Karen Kokajon came to me and said, "We're in trouble." And I said, "Why is that, Karen?" She goes, "Reed's the only one that can hit the rim." I said, "Well, it's an 8 foot goal. We're going to play a 6 foot goal, so we'll be all right." I just couldn't get it lowered any lower. So we went into that over the years there. 3-year-old, 4-year-old, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Played a lot of sports. We played baseball, t-ball, basketball, got into some flag football, even got into indoor soccer one year. And I would advise against that unless you know something about soccer. I didn't know anything about it, so I just told them kick it as hard as you could. And indoor soccer, now my girls are actually refereeing YMCA indoor soccer today. It's at that new beautiful complex out there. When they played, it was in the downstairs gym at the Y, and so it was just a free-for-all. You kick it, it hit a parent over there in the stands, and it was a live ball, and it just kept playing. And so a lot of good experiences. Got to 3rd grade Y-ball, and same group of kids pretty much. We kind of played with that same group through every sport, and got to 3rd grade Y-ball, and if you're familiar with YMCA basketball, that's when YMCA basketball gets real, right? YMCA does a great job at those young ages, in my opinion. Looking back on it now, at the time you couldn't convince me of this, but they shouldn't keep score even in 3rd grade. But they start keeping score in 3rd grade. It's competitive. You can go to their state tournament and all that. And so we were all excited. We put a ton of work in going into that year. And man, it was a disappointing year. You get in there and at no fault to the YMCA, they can't get good help there. And it's because of people like me, coaches that yell at the officials. And anyhow, I remember talking to Brian towards the end of that year and just saying, man, I'm frustrated. Like, I had these boys going into this 3rd grade season. They knew they couldn't walk. They knew they couldn't pick up the ball and dribble it again. They knew they couldn't just go foul the kid to take the ball. By the end of the year, they were double dribbling. They were fouling because it was allowed to do it. And so I said, man, my boys were better basketball players before we ever played a game here at the Y this year. And Brian, and I had heard it too, but Brian had heard Brian Lovell talk about taking his kids up to a league in Allen and how it was so much better, it was cheaper, it was much better basketball. And so we kind of came up with the idea of, hey, let's take a group up there. Brian had, him and Cody had their group, which would have been going into Reed's 4th grade year. Those boys would have been 2nd graders. I had the 3rd and 4th graders, and he had the 2nd graders. And so we took a team up there. In a 4th grade league, we took 4 4th graders, 2 3rd graders. I think we had 3 2nd graders that year we went up there. And it was an incredible year. These boys, I think for Brian and I, and probably all the parents as well, but Brian and I for sure, that's when we first started realizing we might have something here. Like, you would see the little things out on the court that, at that age, everybody's wanting to score a bucket because, grandpa's promised them $5 if they make a basket or whatever. It was never like that with these boys. It was always, we're going to find the open teammate. So we went up there, and it was a 3rd and 4th grade league. The majority of the teams were mainly 4th graders. And we competed. We did really well. I think we finished 3rd up there that year.
We competed with Laverne.
Yeah.
All those
Alba,
schools have their
Woodward,
own
yep.
school teams.
Yeah, it's school teams is what it is. And so, with the Y's more, you can handpick your teams, and even EGRT at the time, we struggled out there some a little bit because we had an all Waukomis team going against these handpicked Enid teams and stuff, and we always competed. But up there, it's like, man, this could be a lot of fun. And so that was a great year. We really saw a lot there. Moving on from there, Reed and his group moved into the 5th and 6th grade ball at the school, and they had a good group ahead of them too in that class ahead, so it was a lot of fun. 5th and 6th grade, I think Alan came here when you were a 6th grader. I think it's when Alan moved here, and you didn't coach him that first year, but they had a great 5th grade year, 6th grade year. Colton Kaysen and that group moved up. We had another great year competing, and you just kind of see it, and move on into junior high there. 7th grade year, had a good year playing with Hunter and Daniel and that group above. And as we did that, we were there watching the ball games, and Brady and Keegan and that group below were having more success than we had had in 5th and 6th grade. Man, this is gonna be awesome. And so I remember putting a team together. I was trying to think of this the other day. I couldn't remember. We put a team together one weekend too. Probably, I'm guessing Reed was an 8th grader, so they were probably 6th graders. And we went down and played one of those travel tournaments down in Oklahoma City. And I don't know, we probably went 500 that weekend or something. We didn't do real well, but it was, once again, you saw, man, there's something here as these kids are getting older, and we can get them into school, school ball in high school. We kind of started looking, man, that junior year, that senior year, that's going to be it. Like, you're going to have a couple of years there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before I move on to more, what do you remember from those early days of Pee Wee ball?
Yeah, definitely. Been my 4th grade year, which would have been when we were in Alma. I remember getting the ball right in front of the bench and just shot it, hit the 3 right before the buzzer to send it to overtime.
Yeah.
And then 6th grade year, they moved the YMCA to where NOC plays, and we were playing a team that we've probably beaten once in our lifetime. It's the best team in the league. And I remember my dad breaking out of the huddle. He goes, "Help if there's a press." And they didn't start out pressing, and then they jumped into a press. And Colt brings the ball down the court, passes it to me on the wing, and I go and shoot a layup for the win against a team we've only beat once. So
I remember that game, and he made that buzzer beater, and it was the first time we ever beat that team in any sport. It was one of those handpicked teams. They were good, very good. They wanted to play across the state. And as soon as I did, I told them, I said, "Be ready for a press. I don't know if they'll press this because it's late in the game." And of course, they come out and they just take off the other end. Poor Colt, they inbound the ball at Colt, and there's 4 of them on him. And he takes off, he dribbles behind his back, between his legs, brings it down the court, hits Reed on the wing, he head fakes, goes in for a layup. And as soon as the buzzer ended, everybody runs to Reed, jumps on him, and I run out there and I just grabbed Colt, and I remember saying, "See, I told you you can handle the pressure. You can handle that pressure." And then I went over and celebrated with him. So, from there, 8th grade year, a great year. That junior high time, and I would encourage any young parents, be patient because, as you go through puberty, especially with boys, it takes a while to level that playing field. And, we had a group of boys that kind of got it. They got a lot of it, but they got it late. And so 8th grade year, had a good year. Actually ended up winning the junior high Skeltur tournament in double overtime over Drummond that year.
Yeah.
And that was a game that I didn't know that would happen. I was kind of frustrated, but it got canceled twice because of weather. And I thought, man, these boys work this, but we got it in, we won it. And to Coach Hicks and Coach Hellberg's success, and to their credit, you guys have won 5 of them in a row now, right? Junior high.
Yeah. Hey, what's interesting, Mike, if everybody remembers, that team was pretty good. We went 13-4 that season. Drummond had beat us earlier over at 3rd place in double overtime.
Yep.
And then we beat them in the finals of the Skelter in double overtime.
Yep.
So I thought that was kind of, and then your senior year, we know what we had to do with Drummond.
See the Drummond again, yep. So, I say that they've won 5 in a row now. That kind of sets the table for what was to come, right? Or what's still to come, Trace here, what's still to come with the group that's down there. So going into his freshman year, he's a young kid. He'll turn 18 about a week and a half before he graduates. We knew his freshman year was going to be a struggle. Coach Hicks and Coach Elberg had a team the year before that was pretty successful. One of the better players, I've lived here 20 years, one of the better players that I've seen come through those doors that graduated, Jasper Carter. You lose, he probably averaged 25 points his senior year. You lose that, you know it's going to be a rough go. And starting a freshman that probably really wasn't completely ready. It was a rough year. I think you guys won 4 games that year. We knew, but all along we knew what was coming. Towards the end of the year, we won a game or 2 down the stretch there, and I remember seeing, there was 5 or 6 games down the stretch there. It was like, man, we're competing. We can get almost to the end of the game before we kind of fall apart. So, you got any memories from that freshman year?
Yeah, I mean, going into that season, we knew we were going to be terrible. We returned one, maybe 2 starters because Hunter would change in and out of starters the year before. But we returned him and Blake, and we were bad. We won 4 games. One of them was against a JV team. But like you said, there at the end, like we had OBA, Kremlin, and Ringwood. Like we kept it close with them until like the 4th quarter, and then we just ran out of gas. Yeah. But we were definitely competing there.
And Ringwood was a really good team that year. They were a top-notch team that year. They won the O'Keene tournament that year. I know they had a really good team, and he's right. We took them late into that game and probably only lost by single digits in that game. So going into the sophomore year, once again, knew we were going to be young. It was going to be Hunter and Daniel's junior year, so we knew they would have some growth. We knew we'd see some growth out of him. And then we knew, we knew Colt and that group was coming. They were young, but there was going to be some firepower there. And so his freshman year scoring was pretty tough, so we knew sophomore year, at least the scoring is going to be a little bit better. We may not be ready. And so really, out the gate, I think we're all kind of surprised. Got to Christmas break, I think we were 6-2. Played the Tuesday, coming back from Christmas break against Garber. Garber was really good at that point in time. It was a team that, growing up, he struggled with Garber. Garber was always, especially until he was the old 6th grade or 8th grade, he struggled with Garber because that group above him, and Garber was really, really good. And they came here, we had a pretty packed house that night, and we beat Garber in a pretty emotional game, one of our better games. And so we're pretty fired up going to the O'Keene tournament. Got to thinking, you were either the 2nd or 3rd seed in the O'Keene tournament that year. I think you weren't first, I don't think, were you?
No, we were first.
2nd or 3rd. So we knew there was going to be we knew we had a chance to compete. Ringwood was the one that year, I'm pretty sure. And anyhow, we go into that tournament. Can't remember who played in the first round, beat them handily. So we're sitting there at 8-2 thinking, wow, this could be a lot better than what we thought. Go out to play a Thomas team that was a pretty good team, probably ranked in the top 20 at that point in time. Come out going through the first quarter, and things are going good. It's back and forth. We're going to compete with these guys tonight. And he's coming down the court. The kid's on a fast break. A little guard's on a fast break. Reed's the only one back. At that point, it's a one-on-one. And he's kind of trailing, trying to turn the guy. And the guy pulls up, realizing he's not going to score on Reed. And all he does is just opens his body like this. No speed to it, just that move right there. And he hits the ground. And first, no contact at all. I mean, the kid was from me to, he was at the 3-point line from me to John here. And, I looked at sports pre-Reed's injury and pre some of the things I'm going to talk about here today a little differently. And the first thing I did is I turned to my brother-in-law, Jeff Mitchell, and I said, probably an expletive, I told him to tape his ankles. Here we are, we're going to lose this tournament because he wasn't smart enough to save his ankles. And Coach Elberg gets to him out there first, and I'm mad. And as soon as Coach Elberg gets out there, I see him turn to Coach Q. Matt runs out there, gets to him, and immediately turns and starts looking in the crowd. And that's when my gut dropped, and I realized, oh man, this isn't good. This isn't an ankle at all. And what he actually did is the bone that connects your patella tendon to your shin, he didn't rupture the patella tendon. It just pulled a piece of the bone off. It just snapped the bone off. It chunk. You could see it. And kneecaps up here now. And get down there to him, and I really didn't know what had happened. And we're looking at it, and there's a ball here, so I thought maybe he ruptured his patella tendon. I remember getting down there to him. I think I made eye contact with Brian, and looking at Brian's eyes, I knew it wasn't good. And first thing Matt Q said to me is, he said, I can either stabilize it or we can call an ambulance, whatever you want me to do. And so I kind of just walked by Matt, and I got to him, and you know, he's fired up and frustrated. He just keeps saying, this was our year, this was our year, this was our year. No, it's not. Calm down. We got a long ways to go. But so Matt asked me again. He said, "You want to call an ambulance? You can stabilize it." And I looked at him, and I said, "Do you think you can get up?" "Yeah." So let's get up. I don't want to pay for an ambulance. So get him up and get him off to a side room there. I can't remember. I think it's Doc Langley is what O'Keen's court's named after. A guy probably, I'm guessing, in his late 80s. Comes walking in there, looks at it, he has no idea. He said, "Yeah, you just need to get to the hospital. O'Keen Hospital's down the road." One of the coaches who was actually at Kremlin when I was at Kremlin came up and kind of whispered in me, he said, "Don't go to O'Keen, get in the end." So we had one of those big, you may have seen it in town, we don't have any more of those big Benson's vans. We had a big silver van with the Benson's van. And so I get underneath him on one side, Coach Q's on the other side, and we walked, Karen Coker's on, we got our van and pulled it around to the side there, and we carry him out there, and while got him out there, Coach Q's on the phone with the orthopedic surgeon, Matt Dieselhorst, down up in the city, already making a plan. So get him loaded up in there, and look up into the van, and in my van, I don't know how he got in there around us, but James Baker's in my van, and he's got his hands on Reed, and he's praying out loud for Reed. And we all just kind of stopped and we prayed there with James. We loaded him up, headed to Enid, and got him looked at that night. Thankfully, for Coach Q, he made that call to Dr. Dieselhorst, because when we got to Enid, they immediately wanted to send us to Oklahoma City. And so there was an x-ray sitting there on the screen. They said they were going to go start making plans to transfer us to Oklahoma City that night. Dr. Dieselhorst had told me at O'Keen on the phone, just go get it checked out, get it stabilized, be at my office 8 a.m. Monday morning. So I just take a picture of it. I had his cell phone number because Coach Q had given it to me, and I texted to him and said they're sending us to Oklahoma City. Within 30 seconds, my phone was ringing. "Why are they sending them to Oklahoma City?" They said, "We got to go." I said, "Don't let them." I said, "I can't tell him not to." So he gets on the phone with the doctor. They have it out there in Enid. The Enid doctor was not happy with it, but he convinces him to stabilize it and send us home, because Dr. Dieselhorst said, "They're going to send you to the city. They're going to keep you overnight. They're going to send you home tomorrow, stabilized, and then you're going to have to go back down there Monday." He said, "You won't have to pay for an overnight trip. You won't have to go through getting him down there." So get him home that night, and I remember waking up that next morning and going for a run that next morning early. Didn't sleep at all that night, going in and checking on him. And for the first time in my life, I've always been a very faithful person. I've always believed in God. I've always been very, very, a lot of faith in God. I don't stress about things. My wife will tell you that, her stress level's 10, mine's 0. And it's just because I know God's in control, right? That next morning I questioned God. I mean, I remember on that run crying and just, what are we doing here? Like, this kid, he makes the grades. He's never been in their offices at the school. Like, he does everything right. He's at church every Sunday. Not only is he at church, but he's a leader at our church. Like, he films the service every Sunday. Like, what are we doing? Like, why him? All these kids that are making bad mistakes, and this kid's the one that's there. And I kind of remember he didn't really speak to me. He just gave me a calm that, hey, it's going to be okay. And the thing that really calmed me down more than anything was, for the first time since I've been at Waukomis, the tribe showed up. And they showed up in force. They showed up. They were at our house. Our house isn't, for having 6 kids, our house isn't, it's about a 2,000 square foot home. It's not very big. People were in and out of our house. Food, bringing him gifts. The next night, the Waukomis girls played for the championship at O'Keen. The boys played for 3rd place. On their way out of town, the coaches and the players stopped by and saw them on their way to O'Keen. And so the tribe support for the first, I'd always heard about it, right? Being from here, I didn't really understand it. I'd seen it a little bit when people here get in trouble or have problems in their life, but I'd never felt it like that. Do you remember anything from those first couple of days, that first weekend there?
Yeah, I mean, when I went down with my injury, I kind of locked eyes with Coach Elwood, and I said, "Come get me," and that's when I knew it was bad. And then I remember one of the better stories of this was John was actually able to get Dean Blevins to come meet me, and I don't know if many of you know who Dean Blevins is, but he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that was a really cool deal out of that deal. So anyhow, Dr. D. says, be at my office at 8 a.m. So we load up. My dad and my mom go over, we get him loaded up that morning. In the back of my truck, sitting across the truck with his leg out, pillows, got him as comfortable as we could get him. And we head down to Dr. Eastworth's office, and we get there, and there's about 10 other kids in line with us, right? We get to the front, and I'm here for Reed Hellman, and you have an appointment? No, talked to Dr. Eastworth over the weekend, and he said just show up, and they kind of laughed, they smirked, and I said, is there something wrong with that? And she goes, no, you see all these kids here? And I said, yeah. And she goes, those are all injuries from this weekend. He tells them to be here at 8 a.m. and we just make them work. And he said, you see those older people over there? Yeah, those people will wait. He's gonna get these players in here first and get them moving on down the court. He'll take care of those older people, you know. And so, you ever have an injury? Even if I had an injury at my age, that's who I'm going to now. So, go in there. He says, yep. Bad deal. Probably would have been better if he just blown his knee out, but we can fix it. Goes through the whole deal. Says meet me at the surgery center at 1 p.m. So we go parking lot at a Brahms, and he sleeps in the back. We wait till 1 o'clock. Go into the surgery center at 1 o'clock, and getting him all checked in. I turn around and trying to get choked up here. Turn around and walking through the door of that surgery center is Coach Larry Wicker, who coached me in basketball in high school. And I hadn't seen him in over 20 years. And he's there that day, the lowest point of my time as a father, to come and give me a hug and tell me it's going to be okay, you know. And that meant a lot. It kind of changed my perspective a little bit on sports. It's not about the wins and the losses all the time. Those are important, don't get me wrong. But it's about the relationships. It's about the life skills that we build. And that's something that will always, you know, stick with me. That's what, you know, that's what I wanted for Reed. I wanted, you know, all my kids, I wanted them to have that relationship with their coaches that 20 years from now, they go up and give that coach a hug. Surgery went well. Bad news, 6-month recovery. Basketball's over. We knew that going in there, right? No baseball. He's a big baseball guy. Loves baseball too. No baseball. His summer ball, he played summer ball with Josh Mulder. Everyone knows his legacy program. He played summer ball with that. That's in jeopardy now. And through all that, he was watching his team struggle. I remember sitting in his room because he couldn't get up, laying on his bed with him, watching them lose a close one in the third place game to O'Keene, and just watching his body struggle. And so got him home and just saw that, you know, he was really down in the dumps. The tribe was still coming by, still supporting this, but we went and got a whiteboard. I went and got a whiteboard at Dollar General, hung it on his wall, and put "Comeback Day," and we just put a 1 on it. And every day he'd get up and he'd wipe it off, and he'd put a 2, and he'd put a 3, and it's still hanging on his wall. And I didn't meant to look this morning. What's the day? You remember? 3/31. Something right there. So it's 3/31. That's the day he came back and played Dover. And so, you know, it gave him a visualization of, yeah, this is terrible, but there's an end goal to this as well. So, got through that a little bit there, and then 6 months later, you know, everybody gets dealt a terrible blow, James Baker's passing. And once again, got to see the tribe really come together and support in a different, you know, kind of a different way. I'll never forget watching everyone meet up here and walk around that town during that time, and how it just really brought everyone together. And it was a tough time with James passing. James is a big supporter of all Waukomis athletics, all Waukomis athletes. I get up every morning and lift every morning at 5, and you know, in between lifting weights, I get on my phone and look at my memories. And I can't tell you how many times a year there'll be a memory there from either James has tagged me or I posted a video of one of my kids scoring or catching a touchdown or hitting a home run. And You know, I ended in tears there in the morning just sitting there watching that. So it was a very, very rough time, a lot of questions, you know, why? Same thing, James Baker, like, James, out of all people, Lord, why would you do this? Like, what's the deal here? And so I remember walking around that night, Coach Hicks' wife, Reed was, we weren't even 2 months out of surgery, and we walked a lot of miles that night. I remember Mrs. Hicks being pretty concerned about Reed wanting to go get her vehicle and take him. But anyhow, I went through rehab with Troy Wilzik, and if you ever need any kind of rehab work, Troy is the person that's Holt Semenek's brother-in-law, and so he knew Reed, and it was great. And he worked his tail off in rehab, and was back on the court for their first summer league game 4.5 months later. So, you know, it was a long 4.5 months, a lot of struggles, a lot of tears, a lot of late night talks between me and him. I don't know about him, we didn't really talk about this, but I wouldn't go back and change any of it. Our bond strengthened. I think I know my faith grew tremendously during that time, and I think his faith did as well. He became more resilient than I'd ever seen him in his life, and truly started to become a man during that time period. And so all that, you know, accumulated to this year, and that made this year even more sweet, and you know, the success that they had just was so much more gratifying. And so back to it, you know, God's plan, like I talked about earlier. It was a very dark time in our lives there. Compared to some of the other things I'm going to talk about, it's nothing compared to some of the other things I'm going to talk about, but God was doing some things there. There's a lot of good things you can look back on and say, that was really good that came out of that. And so going into junior year, he made the decision not to play football. That really bothered Dad, just because I always told him, I tell all my kids, you know, play every sport as long as you can. In a small school, you need to play them all. Whether you're getting to play or not, you need to be on the team if you can be. And so he made that decision. No football. We knew the hopes were there. Like, if he can come back, this is where the uphill the success starts. And so, you know, right after school started there, tragedy kind of really struck again with Travis Q and his act, you know, the tragedy that happened there. And Travis, I grew up with the Q boys, Nate and Travis. I went to high school with them. Matt Q was he did his student teaching my senior year of high school. He was our assistant coach, so I know them real well. Donnie, Anita, really close to them. Travis, Nate lives down at the end of my road. Travis actually lives right behind me, right next to my parents. And that was awful. Like, once again, God, what are we doing? 3 young kids, like, what's going on here? Tribe showed up in another way. I saw them pour around the Q family and really support them. Our community is just amazing in that way. Go through our junior year. It was an incredible year. In a year where we thought the Skeltur Conference was probably the strongest we'd seen it in 20 years. We had a great year. I don't remember your exact record. Do you remember what you were?
19-9.
19-9. Won district championship, regional consolation champions, and advanced the area for the first time in 20 years. Any memories of any of that stuff that I talked about there?
I mean, it probably, started off the season terrible. Started with a 29-point loss to a Dover team, but credits to Dover. Dover was really good last year. But it was the turnaround. We turned around and we beat Covington, Coyle, and then went to the Moreland tournament and took third there, which the last time we placed there was probably 5 years ago when we got second.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it was just a flip around from how we started the junior season to how we ended.
Yeah, it was a great year. Really set the expectations high. You know, I felt like Reed wasn't ever 100% last year, but the guys around him, you know, Daniel, Hunter, really stepped up as senior leaders on that team and did an incredible job. And then, you know, Cole really took another step. Brady and Keegan came up there with us as well. And so we had a really good group. So we knew the senior year was going to be an incredible year, and table set, football did great. Here we go, you know, softball's doing good. Waukomis is getting on the map on the state level. Here we come. We're gonna make some noise this year. And once again, Tragedy happens, rough days happen. Ashley's mom had been battling an illness, and on November 2nd, she passed away on Sunday morning. He was at church, called him over there, told him, hey, your grandmother's passed away. Go get your siblings from church and then bring them back over here, and we'll go from there. He goes to get the siblings, and by the time he gets back over, I have to tell him that one of his best friends, Daniel Richards, has passed away as well. So in a 30-minute time period there, he had that kind of news. And so, once again, questioning God, even as Christian men that truly believe, it's hard not to in those times to just say, why, God, why? And we don't get those answers on those things. The tribe showed up again. It was an incredible outpouring for Daniel and his family. But I think what was different about this time was this group, Brady and Reed and that whole, their classes from that sophomore group up to the class that graduated. They were the ones that rallied. They were the tribe that came together. And it was really cool to see. I mean, those are the future leaders of our communities, and to see them pull together during those tough times was really an inspiration to me. The boys came together and dedicated their senior season to Daniel. Amy Mitchell made those shirts for the funeral. There was Daniel's truck with that, I think it was a sunset behind it. And they decided, hey, those are our shooting shirts this year. We're not getting the Waukomis ones out of the closet. We're going to wear these, and we're going to do this season for him. And so, a lot of expectations. I remember talking to him prior to the season. What do you think's happening? Looking at the schedule, what do you think our record's going to be? And going back and forth. And he asked me, what do you think? And I said, I'll tell you what. I said, if you told me right now you finished the season I didn't know the total games. You finished with 3 losses, 22-3 or whatever. I'll tell you, okay, yeah. I mean, and I'm just talking regular season at this point. We're just going through the regular season schedule. 3 losses. I'd say, okay, I can see that. You'll probably lose here. You'll probably lose here. You'll probably lose here. If you told me to lose 6 or 7 games, I can see that too. It's still a tough schedule. And anyhow. Opening night loss. Dover's #1 in the state. They played, I think, 5 games at that point. I think Coach Hicks and Coach Helberg had the boys maybe 3 practices, something like that from football, because our football team had Success.
Thanksgiving practices at that.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are different.
And on top of that, I didn't have this in my notes, Thanksgiving practice that Friday, Javon Porter, who was kind of slated to be one of their first ones off the bench, has the exact same knee injury Reed does in practice. No contact, Reed's guarding him, the exact same injury. So through all that, they go to play Dover. Dover's #1 in the state. It was a state tournament team last year. An incredible team. Reed plays a lot of travel ball with those Dover kids. They can flat out play some ball. And we led most of that game. We punched them in the mouth, and they hit us back, and we punched them again. They hit us back, and really, I think just that late fourth quarter. We just didn't have the games under us. We didn't have the legs yet. We had some football boys that had joined us, and these guys, Reed ran cross country, and Holt ran cross country this year, and it's just different. I mean, they were in shape. They weren't in basketball shape yet. So we lost that one. It was a close game. I don't remember what the loss was, but it was 5 or 6 points probably. And I remember after that game, I was kind of like, man, God. And we get in the car, and he goes, I'm really not upset. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I'm not mad like I normally am for loss. I normally see him again. I think it'll be okay. I remember thinking to myself, okay, bud, I get it. But by the time we get to the Skeltur Championship, Dover's going to be, Coach Reese is going to have them playing at a much higher level than they just played right there. And I think you just missed your chance. What I didn't take into account was the growth that these guys were going to have as a team this year and the step they were going to take. And so go out to Moreland. Moreland tournament, the team that won it last year, that beat us in the semifinals by 25 points or whatever, is in it again. They're the #1 team in the state of Kansas. I think they were state football runner-up this year. I mean,
state champions.
State champions, guys. So they are just a loaded group of athletes. I mean, they walk out there and you're like, wow. And get to the championship game against them, and okay, well, second place in Moreland would be a good start for us. These guys had other ideas, and I don't think I was probably the only one. I mean, I'm sure Coach Hicks and Coach Helberg knew they were going to win, but I think a lot of us thought, this is awesome. We made the championship here. They had other ideas, and they dominated that team throughout that entire game. And after that game, Keegan Keller really stepped up in that game. And I remember going to him, giving him a hug at the end, and said, Keegan, if you play like you did tonight, I think we're a state tournament team. And so I know it's a lot to ask of a sophomore kid, but I think we're a state tournament team. And just incredible win. First time Waukomis had ever won that tournament. There's some good, that team's #1 in the state of Kansas. There's a couple of 2A or 3A schools in there. I mean, it's a really good tournament. So, won that and then proceeded to win, I couldn't remember, was it 24 or 25 in a row?
24.
24 games in a row. 24 games in a row. And I didn't realize it until we were about 15 games in, and I thought, man, we won 15 in a row. So, including getting to the Skeltur finals. We made it to the Skeltur finals and started taking him. I know Brian's done it with Brady, and I know a lot of dads do it. But started taking him to the Skeltur tournament when he was real little. Didn't really know what was going on. And they make it to the Skeltur finals down here at the Stride Center. Super excited. And it kind of goes back to, remember in 8th grade when I told you I thought we were going to lose it to weather, and I was frustrated. Dover didn't want to make the trip that Friday due to the weather. They were the only team that was playing in the final day's games that didn't want to make the trip up, and I get it. But I was frustrated, very frustrated. They were taking us away from them. They moved the game to Pioneer. The one chance they were ever going to have to play on that big court down there, man, I'm mad. Once again, God had other plans. Yeah, they were incredible plans, and that rallied our tribe, and not just the Waukomis tribe, but the tribe that has moved away. And that Friday, so we played at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and you think 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, who's going to be there? It's not going to be anybody. And Pioneer was not ready for what came that night. There were people there that I knew when I was a Kremlin, went to school at Waukomis, that I hadn't seen in my 20 years of living here that showed up for that game. There were a lot of senior adults that you knew played ball here that started showing up for that game. I remember during that game, getting up, and if you've been to that Pioneer gym at the top, they have that little mezzanine that you walk around there to get to the stairs to go down. And I got to the top of that and realized I can't get down to the bathroom and get back up before the second half starts because there's so many people standing in that mezzanine. And so, while I was frustrated that they missed out on playing in the Stride Center, they got to play in an environment unlike any environment probably any Waukomis kid will ever play in. That place was rowdy. It was like the old Gallagher Ivo Arena in there, and our fans went crazy, and they played an incredible game, dominated Dover from start to finish, won by 15 or so, and like I said, Pioneer wasn't prepared. They had their games afterwards, and our whole tribe just said, hey, we're not leaving. And we took over their concession area, and then they finally moved us out into kind of a little breezeway area. And I bet we were there an hour after the game just celebrating. So great memories there. The thing that came out of that too is, we came into this thinking, you get by Dover, you beat Dover in the Skeltur, that's really the only team you had to worry about. I personally overlooked what the Skeltur Conference either. I thought the talent that was there last year graduated. Last year there were 5 teams that made it to the area tournament and 1 team that made it to the state tournament. This year there were 5 teams that made it to the area tournament, 2 that made it to state before and played for a trip to state. So that just tells you, the guys that have been in that Skeltur Conference, it's the real deal year in and year out. So big props to all the players and coaches there. The district champs, regional champs for the first time, and I don't know the answer to that. I asked Ryan Felder, because he's kind of the recent historian the last 20 years or so. He told me they'd made it to the area tournament twice, but they made it through the regional losers bracket. And so I'm guessing it's probably 74, 75 was the last time they won a regional championship.
Well, so we did a little bit of research on that, and the way it worked even back in 74, 75 was a little bit different. The path, well, I was told that this is our first official ever regional championship.
Awesome there.
Yeah.
Made it to the area championship, and at the Enid Gym against, Mighty Okarchi, who is incredible. But I think what I took out of that night more than anything is the tribe showed up again, and that's the fullest that Ian and Jim will ever be probably for a high school basketball game. And then that's saying something when you go to a 6A, brand new 6A gym that's been built for today, and 2 Class A schools pack that thing to the brim. There wasn't, you couldn't count very many empty seats in there that night. Lost to Oak Arch, they're a special team, they're a generational team. Bounced back the next night, like Alan said earlier, against Drummond, pulled a very, Brady does a great job with that team over there. He pulled out a tough win that night. I mean, they were certainly game for it. And state bound for the first time in 51 years. And state tournament against Surreal. Place was incredible if you made it down there. If you didn't, I would highly encourage you to go down there for a game. Just the way they built that, in my opinion, they built an NBA arena for high school kids, is what they did, and a smaller scale version of it. And it's incredible what they did with that. And that night, we played well, played really well, but we just faced a team that played better, and that's what it came down to. And I think the thing I'm the most thankful for from that night is when you look at our team, the 5 boys that put in major minutes that night all played well. There's not one kid that said, man, I had a bad shooting night, or man, I didn't handle the ball real well. So they go on through their lives and say, hey, we made state tournament, we just played really well. It'll never be, Reed had a bad night that night, or we could have made it to the semifinals. So I think that's awesome as well. Anything bad from your senior year?
Going into my senior year, I thought it was going to be the worst year of the 4. Freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I had Hunter, Daniel to play with me, and then they both graduated. And then most people don't know this, but Eli wasn't going to play this year. Didn't come to anything in the summer. Even during football, he said he wasn't going to play. But I'm thankful that Eli did come out. But I definitely thought this would be the worst year of having fun.
Yeah, we thought it was a good thought, a very talented team, but sometimes, like my senior year, I remember at Kremlin, we had the most talented team. We were picked to go to state my senior year. We had 13 kids that could flat out played major minutes, and it was too many for my coach, and then things got in the way. So, kind of to conclude here, the 3 things that I think made this year so much different, and this is the big one, and you see this not just in sports, just in everything overall, is parents stayed out of the way. We stayed out of the way. We let the boys do it. We let them handle it. There was no drama between the boys, and I think that it's easy to say parents stayed out of the way, but I was hoping some of those boys would be able to make it here today. But you had those 5 starters that played a lot of minutes, a lot of big time minutes, but your 6th and 7th man, Jackson Anderson and Jacoby Mulder, would have probably started on almost every Skeltur tournament team that we played this year. And that's saying something. Maybe not Dover, but everybody else they would have started on. And you go from, 7th man down to at 13, I think, whatever you had there. Those kids would have started or played some significant minutes on probably over half of the Skeltur teams. And so to have that kind of talent, and we talk about it, my group that I had, Brian and Cody's group, Matt Anderson's group that would be the freshmen there today, those kids have all had tons of success. 5 Skeltur tournament championships in a row. Like, your kid gets to that first time as a freshman, and I didn't experience it with Reed, but I've experienced it with my daughters this year. They get to that first time in their life, if they're not a starter, they're not getting significant minutes. As a parent, that's hard to handle. It really is. And you have to be, as a parent, you have to be able to sit there and say, this is part of the growth. Not just for him, but for me too, is to let him work through this, make him see that it's hard, but it's also for me too. Like, maybe I need to get out in the driveway with him and rebound for him a little bit more. If it means that much to me, it's bothering me this much, rather than go chew on Coach Hicks's rear end, maybe I need to chew on my own and put a little bit more work into it. So that was special. You don't see that. Alan made I'll get to that here in a minute. The unselfishness. There's going to be a lot of success on this Waukomis boys basketball program over the next several years. And I hope I'm wrong on this, but I think you're going to struggle to ever see a team that is unselfish as what this team was this year. The whole mantra, they never spoke it, they played it and lived it out, was other success is greater than my success. And it shows time and time again. Being his dad, I heard it a couple of times. he would be in the paint and have a shot that he's going to make 100 out of 100 times, and he would pass it, and you would hear him yell, "You're trading a layup for a layup." And he did just as frustrated as I was up there, but that was just he and Keller did it too. They always wanted someone else to be more successful than them.
We had to address overpassing in practice, because there is a time where you do overpasses a team. I mean, it's kind of rare, but there is such a thing where you can overpass and you're giving up shots for the same shot, and it's, but that's the mentality, so, but that's a good thing.
It is a great thing.
It's a great
thing, and you just, in today's basketball world, you don't see that as a big, as much as you would want to. You kids worry about stats. You joke that the schools you go into that have the scoreboards that have their points right next to their number up there. I don't like those because they're looking up there at those. But the third point that I think made this team different and set them apart from what had happened, and I think that unselfishness kind of started with them all starting so young together as well. But the third point is all 5 starters were pre-K kids. Started in pre-K all the way through. I think I counted it up the other day, and I think all of them but 3 on your team this year were pre-K or kindergarten kids. And that is not, I bet you could look across the state of Oklahoma and you wouldn't see a number like that. Like today's world, you've seen, professional athletes, the professional world going to the collegiate world, now you're seeing the collegiate world coming to the high school world with the portal and open transfers in high school, and travel ball, basketball, travel ball, baseball, softball have done it as well. Have really run that building. You get to your freshman year, you put all this money into your kids' sports, and they're not going to play. You go find them in your home, and that's just kind of how it is. And so that's what made it special too. And I think one of the gentlemen that was there at alumni night kind of pointed on that, and how awesome that was, that they were all Waukomis kids. There wasn't any transfers in or any move-ins. So kind of takeaways from me from this journey, start them young and have fun. I don't know that I would recommend starting at 3 years old, looking back on it, but the second part, have fun. That's where I failed early on. If I could go back, my one regret, I should have had more fun. Don't bulldoze their problems. I talked about that. Don't let them run into those hurdles, let them work through them. That's really how they grow. And then the main plan, that kind of to summarize all this up, is that God's plan is good. Even in the worst of times, God's plan is good. We don't always understand it, but good can be found really in anything bad. You can find something good that God's doing. It doesn't mean that, I hate, my wife is a children's pastor for 13 years, and so we've been very actively involved in our church, and you hear that, it was just God's plan, or, you just got to trust in the Lord, or it's happened for a reason. And people say those kind of things because they're trying to help you feel better about the situation you're going through, but it's not always God's plan. I mean, some of the things that have happened here in our community over the last few years, I don't know that it was necessarily what God planned, but He's making good things come out of some of that stuff. So, Reed's injury, I went through that and everything went there, but James Baker's death, I really feel like it ignited a Christian movement in our town. And this church, I can't emphasize enough. I told John this, I try to be here at these men's prayer breakfasts. Anytime that our church doesn't have something going on, I try and be here. What you guys are doing, if we're going to be successful as a town, if they're going to be successful as a school, if we're going to have successful sports teams, that start right here, right? The things that made this team successful were because of the homes that they were brought up in, and the churches they were brought up in, and the people that had poured into them. And so to have a successful town, you have to have a successful church that pours into the youth of your town. And this church doesn't just say they do that, they live that. So James Baker's death also, you come to the sporting events, the prayers before the games, you don't see that in a lot of schools either. We don't go on the road and see that very often. James's FCA program that John and I can't think of your youth pastor's name you have now, that they're kind of leading that on. What's his name? Dalton. I can't help but think James is looking down and saying, "Yep, that's my town right there. Look what these kids are doing." So, Travis, that was a unspeakable tragedy. You could never really find any good that comes out of someone his age, leaving 3 very young kids and a wife behind. But like I said, personally, it made me step back and reevaluate my life and what I found was important in my life, seeing how Travis lived his life. I grew up with Travis and Nathan, like I said. Matt was my coach, Anita and Donnie. Travis went to our church. He was very actively involved. His wife's a nurse, and so even on those Sunday mornings where she was working or had been working, he's there with 3 kids coming into church and showing up, and was there and was trying to get his family into church. And I can tell you, since that happened, Nathan and Kristen haven't missed hardly a Sunday at our church. They're very actively involved. Donnie and Anita as well, they volunteer throughout our church. Nathan's daughters, Travis's nieces, Lauren and Madison are both actively in my youth group. Lauren will be going with us to Salt Lake City this summer for our Nazarene convention. And to top it all off, it makes it even sweeter is Lauren will be baptized on Easter Sunday in our church. So, like I said, a tragedy like that, you don't see anything good come out of it, but you can still find where it shapes things down the road. And then Daniel's death, once again, an unspeakable tragedy. But to see a group of boys come together, lean on each other more than what they would have, I think, had that not happened. And with a mission to honor their fallen teammate and his family, and what that meant, I think, to Richard's family. They were there at every game, they didn't miss it, and it was a lot for them, but I think it was good for these boys too, and a lot of good has came out of that as well. So, just a terrible tragedy. So, continued support. Your church does an amazing job of supporting our athletics as a community. The gyms that you guys played in this year, our gym was packed almost every night, even on those Monday and Tuesday nights. And even the more impressive thing, I know John has pointed that out on Facebook, and I'm sure he's shared that here with his congregation, is you go to a lot of other people's gyms and fill up the visitor side and then pour over into the home side because we didn't have room. And so I hope that continues. I hope we continue to see that, because I think it's great for a community like this. Like a lot of these small schools, I went to Kremlin. It's not a community. There's not very many people that go to Kremlin that live in Kremlin. You live in Waukomis, or not Waukomis, you live in Enid, you live in Hillsdale, you live in Hunt or surrounding communities there. And so you don't have the community that we have. And so I just really encourage you guys to continue to support these guys. We're very blessed with Coach Hilbert and Coach Hicks and Coach Donalds, and all the coaches that are at our school right now. We have a really good group of coaches that are pouring into our young men and women. So.